The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. We could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. We could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. We could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Recording this, and we have had our church service, and we got some of our guys from the Soul Trap staff here, and we thought we'd just get together and chat for a little while and let you listen in to some of the conversations that we have behind the scenes. There's no monologue, there's no script. We do have a theme and a little bit of an agenda, but we just wanted to have a freestyle conversation, and we're very happy to have with us Evangelist Randy Keener, and we've got him video called in with us. We also have Richard Zimmerman. He's our associate pastor, and he's the director of finances and director of operations at the Soul Trap. And then we also have Kevin Caldwell, aka Magic Man. And he is the one that does all the magic for us. He's the production director here at the Soul Trap. I'm not sure what to call Brother Randy, but he's been called a lot of stuff, so we'll just leave him as he is. But we just wanted to open up the conversation. So you're either watching or listening to us, and we're glad to have you here. The theme, of course, we can't get away from it, is the coronavirus. Just the other day, the stock market dropped 2,000 points, roughly. Something that was instituted via the crash of 2008 was what was called circuit breakers. Now, the stock market has had those for a while, but the circuit breaker was actually instituted a little bit more technical in 2013. And maybe, Randy, you can speak to this in a few minutes, but at a certain point, the market stops for 15 minutes. At another certain point, it stops. And then at a certain level, it actually shuts down for the day. Everybody immediately was concerned about the coronavirus. I think hidden in the mix was the reality of the actual oil war that's going on between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and frankly, the United States as well. But it has gotten really crazy out there. And one of the things that's just amazing to us here at the Soul Trap is the hysteria. And listen, if there's anybody that can get hysterical, it is the Soul Trap. I mean, we get hysterical about anything. But this is amazing. It's almost as if there is an intentional fear-mongering going on. So we're just going to chat for a little while. Rich, Kevin, Randy, let's throw the ball into your court, Brother Randy. You were just talking that you came out of the store and a guy had toilet paper.
Armloads of toilet paper. Yeah. And the stores here, the Walmart here, it was wiped out. It just so happened that we were running out at our house, not because of the coronavirus, but we just needed to stock up. And I went to the store to get some myself, and it was just obliterated at our local Walmart. There were, a few of the off brands hanging around. But that was about it. And like I was telling you before, I don't even think this is a symptom of the coronavirus.
Well, and hey, listen, I'm not using off-brand toilet paper.
No.
Period. Right? Right? It's almost like listen, I'm not trying to be ugly or mean here, but if there was an epidemic, there's a pandemic, if this thing was breaking loose, there's a lot more things that I'm concerned about. Every American has far more clothes in their closet than they will ever need. You've got plenty of usage for toilet paper if you needed it. So it is absolutely maddening. I mean,
why toilet paper? I don't understand
why toilet paper. Right, exactly.
Just don't get that one. Use a shower if you have to. I don't know, man. It's
old school water hose. Okay, now we're going. Now we're going down
different options.
It's a lot of options. Yeah. So tell us a little bit. I mean, and then Rich and Kevin, you guys just jump in. The only rule is once I start getting on a tear, you have to let me go. You can't interrupt me because I'm the talent. But no, I'm joking. But Randy, start us off, and then you guys jump in. What did we see the other day when the stock market crashed? Walk us through that, because in all honesty, you are an expert, more so in this field. What did we see the other day, and how much of that is Corona madness?
Okay, so basically what's happening is we are experiencing all the volatility in the stock market right now is due to the coronavirus and to the oil wars, which, like you say, not many people have even recognized really that's going on. It's kind of running in the background. But the volatility itself, I mean, think of all that it's affecting. All the airplane stocks are down. All of the cruise line stocks are down. All of your theme parks are dropping. Apple stock is down. So all these stocks are falling in accord with coronavirus. The big fluctuations that we're seeing right now, as far as a lot of volatility, there's some pharmaceutical companies that are racing to develop a vaccine. And of course, whoever gets there first is going to make a lot of money. So, everybody's kind of placing their bets on who's going to get there first. But as far as what you mentioned about the little blackouts that happen, I was on there the other day looking to do some trades myself because, now's kind of the time to make money if you know what you're doing in it. Mm-hmm. And there was one that took place just yesterday morning, I believe, where it went blank for about 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is. I mean, if you know what you're doing, I mean, the old story is right. You buy low and sell high. Mm-hmm. So somebody's going to make some money out there for sure, But it was interesting because it's when you talk about the coronavirus, that seemed to be what has been driving this thing. And what's interesting to me, and we were talking about this a little bit, it's almost like the media has come late to the party, right? Mm-hmm. We were talking about this a month ago, 2 months ago. But I don't think, even though it has gone more globally, I wouldn't say that it has gone deeper. The actual numbers are more shallow from country to country than they were in China. But it almost seems like it's fuel for the fire now.
Yeah, I think so. The first time I heard about it was on Facebook, social media. I don't really watch the news that much, but I've kind of watched the news since it's become such, I guess, a big deal. But social media, you kind of take it with a grain of salt sometimes. Yeah. So I think social media is an opportunity for us as human beings to either express our wisdom or our ignorance. And so, I was wondering what you thought about, Randy. Did you happen to see the press conference or open conversation that Trump had today with with all the bankers? And how you need to check that out because he was full of the room there with bankers and they were all just hunky-dory. Hey, everything's great. We're going to make it through. And they seem very, very confident. So maybe they're the ones who are making the money.
Well, he's trying to salvage this thing because one thing that I believe personally, that if there's anything that his presidency would be hindered by, it would be a bad economy because that's why he's there. He's the businessman. We're putting the businessman in, and this thing crashing right before election. I don't think there's a chance for the current lineup of Democrats, but if there's anything that provides a chance, it's going to be a messed up economy.
Yeah. And and one of the frightening things about it is one of the best things for a bad economy is a good war. Mm-hmm. I hate to get, conspiratorial like that, but no, I don't. But it really is. It really is odd. Really, Kevin, you were bringing up about the 5G. Randy, have you been hearing about the 5G issues and stuff?
I have. I don't know a lot about it, but I've heard the rumblings of trying to get 5G in and some of the conspiracies that come along with 5G.
Yeah. What do you think, brother?
Well, apparently the last, about 5 or 6 years ago, the power company's been installing new digital meters on everybody's homes. And those meters allegedly emit the 5G signal. So you don't have to be near a 5G tower to receive the 5G signals that could be causing the coronavirus, or so they say.
Well, it's not helping my coverage because I got 5G and it's slow.
Yeah, my 5G sucks. It might be torquing my brain, but it sucks with the phone.
Exactly.
So anyway, here's the thing. I read about this 5G thing today. So where this originally started was It was an anti-5G Facebook group that shared a number of erroneous posts claiming 5G is the culprit. Its creator is a Dutch UFO researcher, which that lends credibility to me anyway. John Tillis writes, I challenge anyone to watch this video at least twice and claim there is nothing to it for all its coincidences. The problem is that correlation does not necessarily mean causation. And so what they're saying is, in essence, is that some of this, and I'm just scanning through here, they're saying that some of this 5G is actually radiation sickness. Is actually radiation sickness, but I don't know, man. That's kind of a. I mean, even for me, that's kind of a push, because you're not. I don't know. I mean, if it is, I don't know how China's getting it under control, because they initially said that it started in Wuhan, because Wuhan was one of the first ones that went 5G in China. The problem is that it was 16 cities at one time. Wuhan was part of 16 cities.
Well, that's got to be an official name for it. Now, that's one thing that I found watching the news. I guess one of the congressmen came out, called it Wuhan.
Yes.
So I just like that, Wuhan.
The Wuhan virus.
I'm going with that now.
Did you
Wuhan
hear?
clan.
Hey, did you? The Wuhan clan. No, don't make me. I will break out into some Wu-Tang Clan right now. All the brethren. There's like a segment that's going to listen to this, and they're going to go, "What's the Wu-Tang? What's the Wu?" They're going to think that's like a segment. Please, don't Google it. So if you wear a tie Monday through Friday, do not Google the Wu-Tang Clan. But did you hear about the one guy on MSNBC who was mad? He said it was like racist that we were calling it the Wuhan virus.
Yeah.
Everything is
stuff, man. So, I mean, are we okay? Let's just go away from the actual thing for a second. I mean, how bad is the media using this to beat up Donald Trump? Because I don't think that we're necessarily defenders of Donald Trump, because he's an idiot a lot of times.
Yeah.
You have to admit that, but I don't know. You tell me.
They're not. I don't think they're. I think he's going to come out golden.
Yeah.
I think he's going to come out. I don't think it's going to be what they want it to be, and he's got it in front of it. And even today, I go back to that. You guys really need to look at that. There was a guy toward the end that actually thanked him. One of the bankers thanked Donald Trump, and he said basically verbatim that you got out in front of this, putting that travel ban in China. It's just like they were just over there just stroking him, man, stroking his back, making him look good. And I think that, they're going, however they're going to do it, they're going to make the economy look strong. We're going to come through this, and
well, what's funny is I read an article, and it was in Esquire, and the guy was definitely a liberal, and he was getting on Donald Trump about him not following the CDC regulations of quarantining and not letting people into the country. Well, now you want him to build the wall to not let people in the country, and they're getting on him about how he's just ruining everything. Everything is his fault, and the reason why people are dying is all on him.
He can't win for lose. Like to me, the Drudge Report. If you just want to like wake up every morning and blow your brains out, just go to the Drudge Report. I was looking through here. The funny thing though that hit me is sometimes, like in the midst of all this, I saw on here, and Drudge is just so gun sales soar among Asians. That's just like, man, it's like the reverse of the Wuhan, Now you've got Ho Chi Minh down there, and he's ready to defend himself. It's just insanity out there.
Yeah. Well, I was just traveling through Texas, and I'll tell you, a lot of the Asians that were coming through, they were wearing the masks and things like that. And I mean, you should have seen the looks that people were giving them just because they're Asian, they're wearing the mask.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It is interesting, and I guess we can talk to this a little bit. It is very interesting that, we mentioned this last time when we did the show. This is something that's not going to rally the country. This is something that's going to divide. I mean, you've got NCAA basketball now saying, hey, we're not going to have people come to the games.
Well, there's a riot in Ohio.
Yeah.
I saw that one of the smaller colleges in Ohio actually rioted because they shut down the school and housing.
Yeah.
So at least they're rioting for a good reason. Like, hey, I need,
Yeah.
But
Well, hey, listen, we have one of our ladies from our church is up in a Bible college. And I wouldn't necessarily say this Bible college is, never mind, I'm not going to digress. Anyway, they're at a Bible college. And they said, listen, if you fly home for spring break, don't come back. And this is like, why? Where you might be exposed. It's like, wait a second, it's really, really odd, the insanity that's coming up about this, because the truth of the matter is you probably have been exposed to more people that have HIV. You have a better chance of being around an HIV patient than you do around somebody that has the Wuhan virus, the coronavirus. But it's if you just looked at the news, and I saw today that the World Health Organization said we now have a pandemic. If you looked at the news, you would think that people are walking down the street, exploding heads, blood everywhere, gore in the streets. And I don't understand.
That's what's weird to me.
Why that is being that way.
So, Brother Randy, like, you went down to the Walmart. You saw, that guy kind of acting crazy. But, as a whole, do you see people, because I was at Walmart today. You were out, you went out with your family to celebrate, birthday and in the restaurant. I know, Kevin, you were working a lot, inside. I don't know if you, but I don't see mass hysteria of people in the streets and, just a bunch of idiots buying up all the sanitizer and toilet paper. But the average person, it just doesn't seem like they're panicking maybe like the media is portraying it, and that's weird to me. I don't, that's where I don't want to get a conspiracy, but it pulls me in.
Well, yeah. The funny thing is, all we hear about when we turn on Facebook or the television, whatever, all we're hearing is how serious this thing is. But literally everybody I know personally, my pastor even said it from the pulpit on Sunday, that the flu's a bigger deal. And everybody I know is taking that attitude. So I kind of don't know who the ones who are panicking are.
Yeah.
It's like, it is panicking.
Right. Yes. That's the issue, isn't it? It's only, you know what? Now listen, if you really, this is something to me that is very much in the wheelhouse of the soul trap. It is almost an Orwellian 1984 construct of what's going on out there. Hey, this is what's happening. And it's like, it's the same thing, and I'm not digressing, but it's the same thing with the racial. Like every week of my life, I interact with Black people on a daily basis, and there's never a problem. But then when I turn on the news, it's like there's roving bands of white people that are lynching, and there's roving bands of Black people that are burning the cities down. And I remember years ago in Ferguson when they had the riots in Ferguson. I had a friend of mine. He was a Black man. He was a friend of mine. He was driving. He had some family there in the Missouri and Ferguson area. And we were talking, and he sent me a text, and I said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "Good. I'm actually having supper in Ferguson." I said, "Dude, are you okay? Is everything all right?" He's like, "Yeah. What do you mean?" I said, "Well, man, it's on fire." I said, "Ferguson is burning to the ground." He's like, "No, it's not. That's like one city block." He goes, "It's not even a block." He said, "I'm like 2 or 3 blocks over. Everybody's fine walking down the street." He said, "You're looking at the news media coverage." He said, "That's like one street in Ferguson." He said, "I could walk around tonight. We've already been shopping. There's white people everywhere. Everybody's walking around." And so it's this creation. You remember the famous, and there was a famous picture of the people holding up, the 2 guys holding up a piece of the Berlin Wall right when it fell down. Well, there's an old story, and it's true, that the photographer that took that, a man met him and said, "Man, that was an amazing picture that you got." He goes, "You like that?" He's like, "Yeah." And the photographer said, "Yeah, it only took us about 5 or 6 takes to get that."
Yeah.
It's just so, is that what you're seeing? Who's panicking here? And even the ones that are panicking, they're so moronic, they're grabbing toilet paper.
Well, I got to confess, I did. I sprayed all the door handles down with Lysol today.
So that's because your kids are sick all the time anyway.
Yeah,
Both of you guys have sick kids all the time. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Brother Kevin?
When I look at the news media and I watch anything, and you go outside, you don't see anything. You don't see anybody freaking out. But when you watch the news, it's very similar to like the morning of 9/11 when that happened. Everybody freaked. We don't know if there was more attacks coming. We don't know how many people are in danger and how many people have died. They're putting that on the same level. But if we had a ticker on the bottom of Fox News with every flu case, every flu death, people would be freaking out. I mean, the cities would be on fire. I mean, if they treated the flu the same way that they treated the coronavirus, we'd be mass hysteria everywhere. It wouldn't just be on the news.
Oh, I just saw on Congress, there was a guy, and it's on Drudge, coronavirus 10 times more deadly than the flu. It's like, I'm not even a scientist, and it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not. So why is it happening, brother? What's your theory on why it's happening like this?
Well, as far as the media side of it, I mean, it may be that they are truly controlled by conspiratorial evil, which that may be true in of itself. But just a few months ago, I went to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was speaking about some different science things that the media has been portraying. One of the big ones was the supermoon. And he showed several pictures of the supermoon. The supermoon actually really isn't much bigger than a regular moon. And generally when they talk about it, it's photoshopped or it's a camera trick that makes it look much bigger. You just have to have extravagance for ratings. You know, if you're going to have people watch 24/7 news stories, you've got to have some kind of extravagance to hook people and pull them in.
Yeah. I agree about the photoshopping of the moon and the photoshopping of the globe Earth, but that's another
landing.
And the landing
a lot. Yeah.
They didn't land on the moon. That's ridiculous. Can't kill a virus, but you can land on the moon. Hey, and just to digress for a minute, I used to think we did land on the moon before I went to the Smithsonian. If you ever want to not believe in the moon landing, go look at that piece of junk that they sent people to the moon in. My kids with cardboard and tinfoil could drill that. You got to be a midget to fit in there anyway, man. It was so small. It was so small. So speaking of this, I guess the president just spoke tonight. Mm-hmm. And immediately I get a text from my mom. And she says, keep me in prayer that I don't get the coronavirus, as apparently I'm elderly and one that has a compromised immune system. So she's scared to death already. So the president, that's great. That's good. You know, it's a funny thing that they don't do a national news conference like Kevin said on the flu. Yeah. You know, look, and listen, we're laughing. I mean, nobody wants anybody to die, and we don't know what this is. It just seems to me that it's being used to further an agenda. I'm just not sure what that agenda is. Is it as simple as to eliminate the president, or is it something even more diabolical?
So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Whatever problems come along with the polio vaccine, I would probably rather have those than polio. But on the same token, I think there's a lot of bad stuff and a lot of new vaccines that are being pushed for kind of nefarious reasons. We were talking about the stock market, and one of the companies that's racing to build this vaccine, it's called Inovio. I just knew them by their stock market letters, INO. And they said, according to Yahoo Finance, that they discovered the vaccine within 3 hours. So it was unusual to me that here's a virus, we don't know what it is, where it came from, and in 3 hours, they think they've got the code cracked.
Yeah, that's kind of like 10 minutes after the towers go down, we know that it's Osama bin Laden. Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting. There's a lot of money to be made. You know, there was the old story that was it the house of the Rothschilds that made their money, that held the market over there was struggling and held the news of the defeat of Napoleon. He had the news held so that it would go down, and he was buying. And then he held that news up, and then when it came, then boom, it went up. You know, there was during the Gilded Age, President Grant had some friends around him and relatives that were trying to manipulate the silver and the gold market and the money market by getting him to make certain statements, and he didn't even realize what was going on at the time, by trying to get him. So it's not that far-fetched to think that it could be used that way politically, banker-wise, you know. And then you throw into the mix, just the sheer maddening hatred for Trump. I mean, they hate Trump like they've hated nobody else. I don't know.
Well,
I think the one of the things that's to the benefit of all who are really capitalizing on this, the opportunist, is the fact that we don't know what it is. So therefore, we don't know what it is, and everyone has an opinion. Everyone has breaking news. It's a race, 24 hour. You spoke about this. Randy spoke about it. The 24-hour news cycle is just a race to get the newest, update. And so, I think that when we don't know something, we tend to fret and panic. But as soon as we realize that it's not that big of a deal, then what we do is we kind of get back and we kind of get callous to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we go through with hurricanes here.
Yes.
It's almost like I want a hurricane to come just so I can see what the experience is, because I'm told, and you get all, but I mean, after 3-4 times of not really anything happening, you kind of get complacent and go, man, this is just a bunch of nonsense, On the other hand, you got people who do have compromising situations who get all, so it's kind of hitting you at both ends.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of a lot like the hurricane thing for us, I mean, we get told every year. Was it Shepard Smith?
Shepard Smith.
What was it he said?
You're all going to die if you don't leave.
You're all going to die. He's on Fox News. That's right. I forgot. He said, if you do not leave, you will die. Okay. My mom, actually, God bless her heart, she was watching the this is when we had the last hurricane come through. She's watching the Weather Channel. And so she calls me and she says, do you have weather or do you have life preservers? I said, like what? Just like in general? And she said, no, in case the hurricane and the storm surge. I said, Mom. She goes, well, they're saying could be 21 to 25 foot storm surge. I said, Mom, if we have a 25-foot storm surge, there's no life preserver that's going to help us. Just go ahead and collect the insurance and move on. But I begged her, didn't you tell that? Didn't you call your family and say stop?
Oh, yeah. I told my mom to stop watching the Weather Channel. I think Vince McMahon was somewhere in the background shutting my electricity off, man. Because that storm didn't do anything. They just shut my electricity off. Shut it off! Shut it off.
For those of you that don't watch WWE, you know who Vince McMahon is. That's the way the Vince McMahon walk. That's the way Brother Sluter walks into the pulpit every Sunday. He does the Vince McMahon walk. But yeah, it is, man. It is. What are you seeing any good signs last 24 hours? Do you see any good signs in the market? Do you see any smart things that Trump is doing, Brother Andy?
Well, to be honest, I've spent all my time looking directly at the market. I've not really been influenced by anything outside of that. So I'm not sure as far as what he's doing. I know he's trying to do some payroll tax cuts to see if that'll help. Because what the market is manipulated by are two prime factors: fear and greed. Right now, it's being manipulated primarily by fear. And then on the back end, what guys do is they short sell or they buy puts on these options. And as the stock plummets, they make money off of that. So, that's kind of what's going on right now. I don't really know what kind of turnaround that there's going to be, or if there's going to be anything long term. We've been overdue for it anyway. Mm-hmm. So, it's just kind of where we're at.
Hey, I just got a notification on Drudge that said Tom Hanks has tested positive for coronavirus.
Forrest Gump.
That would be a loss of a national treasure.
Corona is as Corona does, man. That's crazy, man.
Is he 80 yet?
He's got to be up there. He's got to be up there. There's some people that I wouldn't mind that got the coronavirus. I don't mean that to be ugly. I know it's not Christian, but like it's in Italy, and I think it would be pretty good if the Pope got coronavirus. Yeah. Go ahead, Randy. It's okay to come to the dark side, Brother Randy. It's okay.
I can't believe they shut the whole country down, and somebody may want to check us on this, but and again, Facebook, it's a mixed bag. You got to take everything you read with a grain of salt. But somebody just said they're shutting schools down in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Have y'all seen that?
No,
I
sure
know.
it slows down all over. But
I've seen Washington, but not Kentucky yet.
Well, okay, so let's take it that way, because let me ask you guys a question. So, what? Because in Washington they are starting to do that. And while we're talking, I'll Google that and look. But they are starting to shut some places down. So, what would you do if they said, hey, guess what? You can't go to your church. You can't have a public
I think
meeting
they've
group.
done that somewhere.
Yeah, they restricted.
I know they did it in Italy or Spain or somewhere like that, but I thought somewhere here, somebody in California or something said
in Washington, they restricted group meetings to 10 or less people. Anything more than that.
Did they restrict them as if law, or did they suggest that?
I don't know about
people
that.
Going along with it.
Well,
have you heard about that, Brother Randy?
The last I saw something in Washington, they didn't want groups of 250 or more. Is the last I saw. But again, a lot of my news, because I don't watch the 24/7 alphabet news places. So a lot of mine comes in through Facebook, for better or worse.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking right here at the Courier-Journal. It says several Kentucky school districts closed for widespread illness. So here's what happens. Because this is happening. We've had some people in our church. This is a flu time. People get the flu. The flu is actually out there. And I just wonder if for widespread illness, everybody knows that stuff sweeps through schools and churches. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder in my mind, are people freaking out, because it's corona? The truth of the matter is it is very possible that you could have had corona and not even know about it.
I remember this. I was actually waiting for my wife and my son to get off of one of the rides at Busch Gardens, and I got a notification about Ohio schools closing, and this was a month ago. This was like in January. Several schools closed across Northeast Ohio due to illness.
Yeah,
they closed down a bunch of schools. That could have been coronavirus.
Yeah. Well, they're only testing for it now. I mean,
some kind of illness.
Could have had it a long time ago.
So.
Well, on my the local news here, and I do follow them on Facebook, but the local news encouraged everyone to have a conversation with their families and their kids about what we're going to do if our kids are put out of school for up to a month. Yeah. To have that conversation now.
What'd you say?
You're going to get a check from Trump.
Check from Trump. What was it that Walmart put out that you?
Well, Walmart has come out and said that if you feel uncomfortable coming to work, that you can have up to 2 weeks off. Which I don't know what that means. I mean, you can just take 2 weeks off.
I'd use that
whenever. I would just do it just because of the stupidity of
okay.
That. So you can just walk in and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this. They'll give you 2 weeks off, and then I think what's going to happen is the government's going to come on the back end of that and say, we're going to give you money of loss of wages or something like that. So I guess you can, get it from the government. I don't know. That's kind of odd to me. But
can you foresee if a vaccine comes out? Can you foresee a law, a mandatory vaccine? Because right now it's not. I mean, it's near it, because you can't hardly. My children are right on the cusp of it, but I'd hate to be a parent of a young baby or child now, because you almost can't get a doctor unless you're going to have the vaccines. I mean, you've gone through that, right? Tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the proper schedule of vaccines, you got one chance to go to the doctor, and if they don't feel that you are keeping up with whatever they see as the proper schedule, you're out of there.
Okay. So are we off? I mean, because I'm always interested. I remember there's a guy, and he's a good friend, and he's a follower of the Soul Trap, and he was one of the first listeners of the Soul Trap that reached out, and now he is heavily involved in politics up in the Baltimore, Maryland area. A great man and a great man of God, Torrey Snow. And I remember one of the things when he reached out to me early on, he said, whenever you see, he was a chess player, is a chess player. And he said, whenever you see the right hand doing something, you better check and see what the left hand's doing, because you're focusing on the right hand, but there's something going on in the left.
Yeah.
So my question is, in the next, Congress always does it. We need to act. We need to act.
Yeah.
Well, is there a foreseeable way in which they go, okay, we found a vaccine, thank God. but it's a law now. Everybody has to get it. We're not going to have hundreds of people die in the streets like in Italy. Can you see that happening? What do you think, Randy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We were talking some before the show about Bill Gates. He did a TED talk called Innovating to Zero, and it's all about curbing carbon emissions, global warming, climate change, etc. And there's an equation that they come up with, 4 different things that they want to reduce in order to curb carbon emissions. The first letter in the equation is P, which represents people. And he makes a joke and lights it up, and he says, we've got to get one of these numbers closer to 0. And the P lights up, people. And he goes on to explain that if we continue to do a good job with vaccines and continue to do a good job in healthcare, then he believed that we could get that number lower. You would think that would be the inverse.
Yeah.
That if we're doing good on vaccines and healthcare, the more people are going to live longer. But Bill Gates' take on it, and you can look it up on YouTube, is that the exact opposite was going to happen. So yes, I do think there could be a mandated thing, but also I don't know how much this plays into a globalist agenda, because I know that they want the population lowered. They want population control.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a frightening thing to think about. So Kevin is looking that up, and I want to come back because you mentioned that was what? That was in December, January, sometime in there when you were talking about the Ohio schools
January
being shut down. And then I've got in front of me an article from the New York Times, probably outside of Washington State, is New Rochelle up in New York. Schools and other buildings, this is from New York Times now. Schools and other buildings in the city, the center of the state's outbreak, will be shut, and the National Guard will help distribute food and clean. And it says the National Guard will move in, schools, churches, and synagogues will be shut down. Large indoor gatherings will be, quote unquote, officially banned. The state officials created a 1 mile radius, a containment radius in New Rochelle, Westchester County. And it's just amazing. I mean, what you have in the United States of America, and I don't think anybody is paying attention to this, but in essence, you have martial law without the marshal. You have violent law.
Yeah.
You don't have to have tanks driving up and down the road. These people are willingly going, we that's fine with us. And so let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you, Brother Rich, and then I'm going to come to you, Brother Randy, and then we're going to come back to you. If it happens in Bradenton, Palmetto, if it happens in Asheville, Marion, and they say, hey, you cannot meet at your church on Sunday. Now that becomes a real issue right there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I think that does become a real issue. And, I'm always one down the line that, my first instinct is, well, we're going to go to church.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're just going to do it. And then they're going to have to just bring us in handcuffs.
Yeah.
Until we see that happen, then it's just in theory. But I don't think we're that far off from something like that. But I don't know that it's going to come to that. And if it does come to that, I think the amount of people that will stand up against that will be so small that it wouldn't be easy just to corral them up and put them in jail or anything like that.
Okay, but you don't think that people would put up with that for very much?
I think that if they scare people, see, my thing is that I don't think they can do it just off of fear mongering.
Okay.
I think something has to hapen.
It has to be legitimate.
It has to be legit.
It's got to be legit.
Like people in Bradenton, there's an outbreak and people are dying, and like you said, people's eyes coming out of their side kind of stuff. We're really seeing something because there's just not the reaction. The reality is that majority of the people aren't panicking because there's nothing to panic over. It's kind of like the whole racism thing that you were speaking of.
Yeah.
On the news, on social media, it's a huge problem. But in reality, it's really not.
Yeah.
In reality, I run through a neighborhood when I go on my jogs. There's a lot of black folks in there, and they wave to me, and I wave to them, and go about my business.
Yeah.
So in reality, there's just not a lot. But it's scary when I see, because I don't like to get in this conspiratorial realm. I don't like it. I don't want to be there. But you see these kind of things. That's real news. It's not social media. It's not guys sitting around just kind of giving their opinion. It's officials going, hey, we're going to do this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, he doesn't like to be. He's like you, Brother Randy. He doesn't like to be there. But it's like a suction. It just sucks him in.
Yes.
And so you and Brother Rich probably have a lot of, because like a black hole, I just suck you guys into the.
Well, I'm getting a lot more comfortable.
Hey, Brother Kevin, do you have that? Can we play that clip? Hey, Randy, do you mind if we play that clip?
No, go ahead.
A little bit of that clip from Bill Gates.
We need to meet a new constraint. And that constraint has to do with CO2. CO2 is warming the planet. And the equation on CO2 is actually a very straightforward one. If you sum up the CO2 that gets emitted, that leads to a temperature increase. And that temperature increase leads to some very negative effects. The effects on the weather, perhaps worse, the indirect effects in that the natural ecosystems can't adjust to these rapid changes, and so you get ecosystem collapses. Now, the exact amount of how you map from a certain increase in of CO2 to what temperature will be and where the positive feedbacks are, there's some uncertainty there, but not very much. And there's certainly uncertainty about how bad those effects will be, but they will be extremely bad. I asked the top scientists in this several times, do we really have to get down to near zero? Can't we just cut it in half or a quarter? And the answer is that until we get near to zero, the temperature will continue to rise. And so that's a big challenge. It's very different than saying, we're a 12-foot high truck trying to get under a 10-foot bridge and we can just sort of squeeze under. This is something that has to get to zero. Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3. The second factor is the services we use. This encompasses.
Okay, so did you hear kind of the nervous laughter when he said probably one of these numbers are going to have to get down to zero?
Oh yeah.
Everybody in that room had to know what you just said, man. That means that you're talking about people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they don't want why would they want a vaccine? If I'm down a conspiracy now, why would you want a vaccine if it's there to help?
Yeah.
Or is it a big conspiracy to where the vaccine's the real killer?
The vaccine's the real killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something.
But did you hear, now this is going way off the deep end, but did you hear about the black rain that fell in Japan?
No.
No, you didn't hear about that? There was a rainstorm and all over, and it fell. And some people are saying it was from the over cremation that China was doing. That stuff got up in the atmosphere, and
wow.
It's kind of weird. Yeah. Okay, so here's the freaky thing. So before we get too far, I was doing, this has been kind of going around, but I came across this and did some research. So there is a guy by the name of Dean Koontz, very famous writer, okay? The guy converted to Catholicism in Avro, Manhattan. He wrote years ago about, of course, Ruckman used to talk about him, but he wrote about Catholicism being involved in just about everything. Dean Koontz wrote a book in, I think it was 1981, somewhere right around there, called The Eyes of Darkness. And this is amazing. In the book now, this is quoting verbatim, part of the plot was there was a Chinese scientist that defected to America and told them that the Chinese had a biological weapon, a virus called the Wuhan 400, and that it was going to be released around the year 2020. Yeah.
Coincidence.
Yeah. So you know how you remember, if you've ever done any research, if you remember all the synchronicity of the 9/11 and that you could see in The Simpsons, in The Matrix, Neo's was it passport or his license, his driver's license expired, 9/11, the synchronicity of President Trump in the how does that guy write about the Wuhan virus from a Chinese guy in 2020, Dean Koontz? So you start looking at some of this stuff like Bill Gates. He just actually on that, and we'll put more on there. But I mean, when we talk about globalists, in a way, I know it kind of sounds silly, but then in another way, you have to ask yourself, man, is there a global plan out there, whether it be what is in Georgia, the Guidestones, you know, is there a global plan out there, and are we beginning to see it unfold? Talk amongst yourselves. That's pretty wild about Dean Koontz. You got to admit that, wild. Man. That's pretty wild.
Well, then maybe we're just joking about something that's going to become serious.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to go get some toilet paper.
Yeah.
Had you heard about that, the Dean Koontz book?
No, first time. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'll put it up. I'll post it up there. It's
a black hole.
Yeah.
It really, really is.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel, man.
It really is. I wonder sometimes, I tell you too, I wonder sometimes if this just, you know, it's interesting. I was thinking about it today. So Satan, in the book of Job, Satan comes to God and he says, I'm gonna go at Job. God says, all right, I'll do it, let you allow restraint. And the first thing he does really fundamentally is hit him economically. Now, ultimately, he loses his children, but the fundamental thing that happens to Job is economics. The second thing that happens to him is he says, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give in exchange. So he hits him with a disease. And it's kind of ironic that you're looking out on the landscape, and that's what you're seeing. I mean, when 9/11 hit, everybody, I mean, they're all on the steps of the Capitol building singing God Bless America, and let's go kill a bunch of Arabs and let's fight, and everybody's got, you know, yellow ribbons in their yard. It's a total different thing. You take a man's money and you take his health. And that's what I think is spooky about this kind of situation right here. You know, skin for skin, you touch his health and you touch his money. And it's interesting because you can make an argument, and I think Ruckman even did, you can make an argument that that's part of what, I mean, that mark of the beast, the word spot that comes up, the way leprosy plays such a huge role in the Old Testament, and then maybe again during the tribulation. Nobody can buy and sell unless they have the mark of the beast. I mean, maybe there's some synchronicity there. Maybe we're overreaching, but man, I mean, would you ever have, I mean, things are so odd what's going on right now. They're closing down entire things over a total of 400 people, you know, or whatever that number is. It is just definitely odd. So give me your best prediction. Let's just go around. I'll tell you, here's how we'll do it, because we could talk shop all night long. So give me we'll start with you, Brother Rich. What did you want to say, and what is your prediction for the next week? In other words, if you really want to say some closing thoughts, this is what I'm thinking, this is what's been on my mind. And then what is your best prediction? Kevin, same for you, and then Brother Randy, and then I'll bring us home.
Well, the first thing I would say is that social media has played such a dramatic part of our makeup. And this is where I believe that it's exploded.
Oh, I agree.
I don't think the national media know how to contend with social media.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
So I think social media is trying to get out this, or the national media is trying to get out this, we're going to give you all the information and like that. And it's turned into this thing to where they think they're going to get Donald Trump. And it's everything about Donald Trump. And what I believe is happening is we're going to go through this. It's going to be just like, any kind of other thing. And it's going to hurt the opponents of Donald Trump politically. Mm-hmm. And I think he's going to come out, and it's just going to drive him even more to the presidency. And because I think what we're seeing is we're not seeing panic from the average person. What we're seeing is panic from politicians to gain power. And so they see an opportunity, whether it's an act of God, just an act of a natural falling world that we're living in, or some mad scientist somewhere tried to come up with some kind of virus and it got out. Yeah. They're going, oh, and they jump on this, and they're trying to portray it something that more than what it is. And once again, they're just going to fall flat on their face. If it is something that's serious, well, then, we're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I really believe that over the next week, it's going to, run its course. And Donald Trump is going to stand before all the sheep of America and say, I told you, I'm great. And people that didn't think so are going to, in closed doors, hit a button and vote for him, and he's going to be president.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's what I think is happening with this virus.
I think you're right. What do you think, Kev?
Well, a couple things that I saw. One of the things that frustrated me the most today was the article of that preacher in New Zealand that's saying that as long as Christians tithe, they can claim Psalms 91 and they won't get coronavirus.
Wait a second. Wait a second. What was that again?
As long as Christians tithe, they can claim Psalms 91:10, I think it is, and then they won't get coronavirus. And that's the most. I saw a bunch of people on Facebook who I don't even know. I just accepted their request, and they started posting that garbage too. And it's just, get out of here. It's not even, has nothing to do with anything. It has something to do with keeping pestilence out of your home.
So Psalm 91:10, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling.
So if I get sick, does it mean is it because I'm lacking in faith, or what?
Because you don't tithe.
I don't tithe.
Filthy reprobate.
Yeah, exactly. It's heathen. The other thing I look at is I don't know. I think of everything as a conspiracy now. The more and more that I look at everything,
the more he hangs around.
You look at Joe Biden can't stay awake for more than 5 minutes on a stage now. So what's the best way to not have him not have to debate anybody? Don't go outside. It's dangerous. We're not going to have the debate anymore because we don't want anybody to get sick. So just have him. He can go take his naps throughout the day and get his whatever else medicine he needs.
That's amazing to me, man. On the night he wins, big win, he gets up on stage and that walking bag of death can't even tell which is his wife and which is his sister. He's like, "Oh, it's my wife." "Oh, no, who's this?" "My sister." Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, if you had to help, Biden, this would be the only way to do it. I think it would be the only way. Yeah. What do you think, Brother Randy?
Well, I think on the Joe Biden thing, I think he very possibly may have early signs of dementia.
Nothing early about it.
Yeah, I mean, I legitimately believe that.
We're way past the early point, man.
I think his family's doing a huge disservice by letting him continue to do what he's doing. It's ridiculous. But my prediction for what's going to happen, and I will give a optimistic prediction. I am by nature an optimist. I think within a few weeks, it is going to blow over. I think Donald Trump is going to say how great he is and that he handled it. The thing about all this, though, is that it's all conditioning pieces. One guy came out, a commentator said, gosh, I guess it was probably maybe a year or so ago, that Donald Trump was like the second coming of God, end quote. And Donald Trump retweeted it. And the crazy thing is,
hey man,
I know I would.
I'm going to retweet that. If you tell me that I'm the Messiah, I'm retweeting that. I'm sorry.
The crazy thing is, though, is that all of my independent Baptist brethren, the guy can do no wrong in their eyes.
My gosh.
And so he does something like that, and they'll say something like, yeah, he shouldn't have done that. But look at all the good stuff he's done. I think this is continual conditioning that they're just pushing on us. I think it's conditioning for the coming of the Antichrist. Yeah. I think it's conditioning for a globalist agenda. If you listen to the end of that Bill Gates thing, I think he clarifies that he's part of a globalist agenda, or at least he desires one. Yeah. We've already forgot about Epstein. I mean, all these guys were connected that we just mentioned.
Oh yeah.
And they're all part of this same agenda. So anyway, I do think this is conditioning. I think this one's probably going to blow over, and in a few weeks it'll be just fine. But having said that, the flip side is all the Christians who are saying, "Oh, I'm not worried about it. The Lord's going to take care of me." Well, I think they're so short-sighted that they've never read a history book. There were literally Christians who were eaten by lions.
Yes.
And
in the dispensation that we're in.
Yeah.
Yes. They were people who suffered all kinds of cruel and unusual tortures. And, what's the argument? That God didn't take care of them? Mm-hmm. So the modern, especially American idea of Christianity is God's not going to let me get coronavirus. God's not going to let any bad thing. He's not going to, allow my 401k to be affected, so on and so forth. So I do think in optimistic terms, it's going to blow over. But I also believe that eventually we're going to get hit by one that's probably not going to blow over.
Yeah. I would agree. I would concur with, I think all three of you were all three of the pieces of the puzzle. I do think that it's going to blow over. I think that people are going to be very, very shocked at the second, and I do believe that Donald Trump is going to be elected. I mean, I just don't know how. Joe Biden was giving a speech a couple months ago, and his dentures almost came flying.
Blood came out of his eye.
Yeah. He is the source of the Wuhan virus. But I think they're going to be surprised at Donald Trump. One of the things that struck me is it wasn't all that long ago when Donald Trump announced his big peace plan in the Middle East, a 2-state plan. And then the next thing you know, the Wuhan virus cuts loose and we're over here and the stock market loses 2,000 points and we've got that. I can't help, there's a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, but there's a book that tracks a lot of the things. Do you have that by any chance?
Yeah, I believe it's this one right here. Yeah. How Satan Turned America Against God.
Yeah, there's another book, and I can't remember, and I think it's one that he actually references in that.
Okay, gotcha.
I highly recommend that book, How Satan Turned America Against God. And it's true. Every time we tend to mess around, we've had an unprecedented economy, and we moved the capital over there to Jerusalem or our embassy. So I agree. I think it's probably going to blow over. I think it's going to be conditioning, but it is very, very interesting just to see how the media is able to hype this up and to create a world that's just not true. I mean, it's a world that's just not true. So I think it was a great discussion. I mean, I'm a little worried. I'm going to go get some more toilet paper maybe, but I don't know, man. It's just one of those weird things that we're watching unfold, and it'll be interesting. I think what you said is exactly right, though. One of these times it isn't going to blow over. And a lot of Christians are going to be very, very surprised at it because they assume they're going to be able to drink a Starbucks and walk their way into the rapture. And I just don't think it's going to happen. Well, listen, I hope you guys have enjoyed this kind of just off the grid conversation. We just kind of free rolled and went with it. A little bit raw, but we wanted you to kind of get just a flair of what it's like to be behind us. If you're watching, we appreciate that. Make sure to check out thesoultrap.com and make sure to look us up on Facebook. Reach out to us. And listen, we're interested in your opinion. Make sure you do email us or make sure you do follow up with us. We want to find out what your opinion is, what you think. Maybe there's something we're missing, something we're not thinking about, and we sure appreciate hearing from you. Thank you, Brother Randy, for being with us. Guys, great job. Thanks. Wednesday night after hours discussion, just a little light coronavirus for you. So God bless you guys until we meet again.